All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve. And today's episode, guys, we are talking starts and sits for Week 3. Yes, we're 3 weeks already into the football season. It is wild. Obviously, on today's episode, it's just me and Coach Jibbs, and we're going to be doing some lot of fun things today, guys. Sleepers, we're going to be doing busts, and we'll probably get into some, rapid questions on today's episode today. So I think Coach Jibbs is ready to come on into the stream. It looks like things are falling over there, but what's going on?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things going already over on my side, but I'm gonna get it fixed in a second. But it's going good. Besides that, nice little rainy day, nice little Thursday football action. 2 dog teams finally. You get those crappy Thursday night games, but hopefully you'll get some good ones coming up.
Yeah, well, at least we get to watch Chris McCaffrey play football tonight, so that's always
yes, dagger in my heart. Anywhere.
Exactly. So before we get started with the start and sits, guys, just go over some news real quick. Lamar Jackson's not practicing. He's got a little bit of a stomach issue. It's not COVID related. Should be fine for Sunday. Odell Beckham will make his debate for the new year in Week 3 this week. He's been giving the okay by the coaches. He's ready to go. He's going to be working this week. This is interesting to keep your eyes on. Dalvin Cook, Josh Jacobs, both missing multiple practices back-to-back days. Now, we know Josh Jacobs had that injury that kept him out last week. Who knows if he's going to play yet. But if Payne Barber was dropped this week, go out and find him. Now, Dalvin Cook has now missed multiple practices. Now, that just might be to keep him rested and healthy for this game. He may not be actually out as we hope. But if Alexander Madison is out there, I would consider picking him up now, just in case. Kenny G is not really doing much in practice. He could end up not playing this week. Evan Ingram is practicing. Well, it's not that he does. He's not really doing much in practice. He's not even limited. He's just not practicing right now. So it's not.
I think we should talk to Daniel Jones.
But Daniel Jones will be fine. Evan Ingram is practicing, so that could be a good thing that he actually might play finally for the start of the season. Terrell Williams is headed to the IR. Tua is out Sunday. We didn't really get to cover that on Monday, but he is out. Jacoby Brissett will take the starting job for right now and be playing against the Raiders. Carson Wentz might not play either, and which for some reason the Colts have said that Brett Huntley and Jacob Easton will share duties. And obviously Big Ben and Deontay Johnson are banged up right now, so keep that in mind if they're playing this week or not. But Jibbs, let me just ask you to start off with the switches at quarterback here, potentially with definitely the Dolphins and possibly the Colts. Is there anyone in those receiving corps you want to start this weekend now?
Dolphins and the Colts?
Yes.
I think out of the whole bunch, it'll probably be Michael Pittman. I will want to start, but and then I'm still not going to give up on Jonathan Taylor, of course. I still think the offense will run through him a little bit more. I don't know how consistent it will be or how definitely his odds of scoring a touchdown went down dramatically, I'll tell you that much. But, he's still going to get the rushes. But Michael Pittman's for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page, really. It's Michael Pittman, who is really the only guy that I would consider starting this week because they are playing the Titans, and someone has to catch the ball there in Indy. And Michael Pittman at least showed us something last week. I'm not overly confident that Michael Pittman is the starter this week, but he showed us enough that you could consider him as a flex option. But outside of the Dolphins, go ahead.
I was saying, one thing they're not going to do is throw it deep, and Michael Pittman's that short guy for the team, and I know we were kind of harking on week 1, they got so many options, whatnot. So maybe they're going to prioritize that short, kind of slant, big body option.
That's true. I mean, if the Colts were smart, they would do something similar to that nature for sure. But out of the Dolphins and Colts, it's Michael Pittman, guys. So hopefully this offense can stay stable. Myles Gaskin could end up getting a slight upgrade because they might end up having to run the ball more. His receiving ability, Josh Jacobs, Jacoby Brissett did throw to his running backs at times when he was a starter for the Colts in 17 and 19. So there's some optimistic hope that Myles Gaskin can kind of get back on track. And the Colts run game should stay pretty fine for the most part. So, all right, Jibbs. So last week you won on, unfortunately, but I didn't do that well. Maybe you're my lucky charm man to stay on the show because I was 2-8 in my picks last week. Very unfortunate. Our guest, though, last week did fantastic. Jay Felicio, he did great. He was 6 for 8. Hopefully, we can both be giving you guys great sleepers and busts for this week 3 here. So, start with the quarterbacks. Jibs, who's your QB sleeper of the week?
It's Daniel Jones, and it hurts me to say that because I'm an Eagles fan, of course. But surprisingly, and if you're playing a 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, he's QB5, and I didn't know that, and he's pretty much on waivers to be claimed in a lot of leagues. So I know it's a long stretch, and if you have a deeper roster, you might consider like picking him up as your QB2 or someone to hold during a bye week or so later on in the season. But the Giants aren't a world beater offensively, but I like to see what I'm seeing out of the Giants staff with the design play runnings that he's getting, and he's going against the Falcons this week, who give up the most fancy points to quarterbacks this year. They allow 4 passing touchdowns on average per game. So if he can't get it done, I don't think he can get it done anyway. But he's also had 6 rush. They also give up the 6th most rushing yards to quarterbacks this year too at the position, and that's like 5 carries for 32 yards per game. Daniel Jones also has average 6 rushing attempts per game. And for 60 yards, I know he has some explosive plays, and one did get called back last week. So I think it's looking all in for Daniel Jones this week. So I like Daniel Jones a lot.
Yeah, in fantasy, he's definitely producing that we were waiting for last year to produce. And it just seems like a Daniel Jones game, though, where he might end up playing horribly. But, he's over 20 fantasy points a game, and the Falcons led up, like you said, the most fantasy points to QB. So it's a match made in heaven. Let's hope it kind of works out for Daniel Jones this week. My QB sleeper of the week is Justin Fields, the rookie quarterback from the Chicago Bears. He is getting the start this week, and he plays the Browns. And, we talked about the Browns as a stout defense, but they've been getting killed by QBs this season. They've allowed the 3rd most fantasy points. Granted, one was Patrick Mahomes, but Tyrod Taylor, if you watched that game last week, Tyrod Taylor was looking nice before his injury. Very similar quarterback play, very mobile quarterback in Justin Fields. I'd expect Justin Fields to have a really solid day and someone who can end up finishing as a top 15 quarterback in fantasy because of his rushing ability. Again, he didn't look great last week, but again, when you're thrown into a game sometimes, you're just not prepared mentally. And I know that he's going to have a full week of practice as the starter, and he should be someone that you should be willing to play this week because he could provide you really good, solid value. So he is my QB sleeper.
I like that pick a lot. Like T-Mobile had at least 100 yards, passing touchdown, and a rushing touchdown before he got taken out of that game. So Justin Fields could do pretty much all that. It's just got to get more consistent passing the ball and take it out from there. But it's a good spot for him this week.
Exactly. Over a QB bust now, Jibs. Who do you got someone that you're not so high on this week?
I'm not high on Tom Brady this week. I'm not saying he's going to shit the bed and score no points for you, but I'm just not expecting him to throw 4 touchdowns this week. That's basically his average. He had 4 and 5 between weeks 1 and 2. So the Rams only allowed 1 passing touchdown so far this year, and QBs are barely averaging 250 yards per game. So I'm just not expecting them to reach 20 points in like a 4-point per passing touchdown league, especially without the full complement of wide receivers. I know they might be missing Antonio Brown due to COVID. Mike Evans was a little banged up last week, but I know he's going to play. So, but the Rams defensively are stellar in the secondary, so I think they'll be very stout, and they could contain that dynamic passing offense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's my bust for the week, Tom Brady.
Yeah, no, I don't hate that. I mean, it's really hard to want to sit Brady because he's been so good, but...
I'm not saying sit him. I'm just saying temper your stuff.
Yeah, low expectation. No, I get it. It's just you have to lower your expectations, so I definitely get that. It's hard to think that, though, because he's been so great, but AB's possibly out. I didn't think I mentioned that. He's out right now with COVID. He does need 2 COVID negative tests to actually be able to play, so there's a chance he's actually out this week. But, yeah, the Rams defense are tough, so I like that one there. Jibs a lot. For me, guys, it's Joe Burrow. And, he's playing the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. The Steelers have a pretty solid defense overall right now. And, last week when there was a game where they're behind the Bears and they're looking to kind of fight back, I mean, Joe Burrow just doesn't do that well. I mean, he threw 3 straight picks on 3 straight series, and he just didn't really look himself out there. He's been getting sacked a lot right now. The O-line is very shaky. I mean, you have T.J. Watt coming on the one side right now. That's got to disrupt his flow in the game in this coming up game, and I'm just not looking to start Joe Burrow. I think he's in for a really trap game week where he just kind of does what he did this week. He might have thrown 2 touchdowns, but barely hits 200 yards and maybe throws a couple picks once again. So for me, Joe Burrow is my bust this week. And, some rapid fire questions here, guys. You start this guy or not? Do you start Derek Carr this week, Jibs?
I would.
Okay, yeah, I have faith in him, even with his bang up injury. Do you play Trevor Lawrence?
Against the Cardinals, you can, but there's probably some better options on the waiver wire. I don't see him. He's going to be in garbage time, and it's going to be a high-scoring game regardless.
Right. Now, I kind of agree with you on that. Let's see. Baker Mayfield, do you have interest in starting Baker with Odell coming back?
Not really.
No, same, honestly.
He's been playing well, though.
If he didn't get that rushing touchdown last week, he would have had a very minimal game once again. So, not looking forward to that. And then one more, real quick. Matt Ryan, do you play Matt Ryan this week against the Giants?
I don't want to.
You could, but again, there are better options out there for you right now than going with Matt Ryan. But you could absolutely start Matt Ryan. I think he'll put up decent enough numbers against those Giants. So, all right, and let's move on to the running backs here now. We have running back sleepers. Who's your sleeper, Jibs?
Okay, so I didn't come up with a sleeper this week, but this is basically, it could be a sleeper based on his recent performances, and it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I know a ton of managers definitely lost faith in him, in starting him at least with his recent outputs and performances. But this is just more of a confidence nod for those questioning benching him this week. The Chargers' run defense is bad this year. They allowed the most rushing yards in the NFL in the last 2 games, basically 143 yards per game. And between Gibson, Pollard, and Ezekiel Elliott, they all scored at least 10.5 PPR fantasy points. So that's one sign in the right direction for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you know what I'm saying. They allowed 2 touchdowns so far. So I'm just showing a good – and he's basically their only running back. So if they're going to allow 52 attempts in the last 2 weeks, I think it's a good chance for him to fall in the end zone this week if he doesn't get poached by Kelsey.
Yeah, it's a shame, though, what's happening with Clyde right now and everything that's going on. And him just not performing to the standard we want, and him not just being involved in this offense. But
and one more thing too.
What's up?
The Chargers defense is very stout against quarterbacks and wide receivers this year. They have given up the second. They allowed the second. How do you say it? They go to the second least points for quarterbacks and wide receivers. The fewest. So I think that's positive. There's a lot going in that direction for Clyde. That's what I'm just saying.
It makes sense. Yeah, it's a shoot for the moon play. It makes sense to play him still. So I like that one a lot there. He might exceed expectation that we're giving him currently right now. So I like that. My sleeper is just one position, and it's the 49ers running back. Whoever it may be this week. Now, Elijah Mitchell, I didn't really get to mention it, but he's not looking great. His shoulder injury was worse than expected on yesterday. And then you go and bring in Trey Sherman, who's looking better. And then the big pickup, Jaquez Patrick, everyone's picking up on the dynasty radars right now. You have to kind of wait and see kind of approach and see who's inactive and who's active this week. And I think either one of these guys will see at least the majority of the workload. I'm saying 12 to 13 touches. And the Packers defense has not looked good, as we saw the last 2 weeks now. And they do allow rushing to their opponents. And whoever that starting running back may be this week, he might be flex worthy enough for you to throw in your starting lineup and play. If Mitchell does play, I'd be concerned just because the shoulder injury could get re-aggravated. If Sherman's active, means he's pretty good. Concussion protocol, I'm pretty okay with that. And if neither one are active, Patrick could be a really low-key deep sleeper or deep flex option for you this week. So keep that all in mind. And over to the RB bus now, Jibs. Who you got for the RB bus this week?
It's Joe Mixon's, and comparatively to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the Steelers have only allowed 59 rushing yards per game on the ground. And they haven't allowed a touchdown to a running back and haven't allowed a running back to accumulate at least more than 80 yards per game total passing. receiving and rushing. So I just see this being one of those Joe Mixon games where he has 20 carries and 70 yards, and that's about it. So I'm trusting this week against that stout Pittsburgh defense.
Yeah, that's tough there. And I think I had a stat for you. I'll try to help. I'll kind of beef up your thing here if I remember it. Do I have one? In 6 games versus the Steelers, Mixon has only averaged 65 yards and have only scored 1 rushing touchdown in his career. So there's a little more heat to your fire there.
There we go.
Hey, I got some stats. I got
analytics.
Of course. All right, guys. So my RB bust this week is unfortunately Zeke Elliott, and I hate to say that, but they had a great week. Him and Pollard had a great week last week, but how much involvement is Pollard going to be involved moving forward? And that's not the only reason. That is just one piece of the pie there. That has to take into some effect on how you look at Zeke Elliott as a fantasy running back right now. Is he really an RB1 or is he more of a high RB2 based off his usage is enough there, but it might not be as great as we want him to be because of Tony Pollard there. And then second, they're playing the Philadelphia Eagles, who in the first 2 weeks of the season basically kind of locked down the 49ers run game, basically kept Atlanta's run game to like nothing for the most part. And now they're coming into week 3 here, now looking really solid. And for Zeke Elliott versus this Philadelphia Eagles, it really hasn't been that great. He's played, I think it's like 8. I think is it 8? No, it's like 10 career games he's played against the Cowboys, averaging under 100 yards a game and just 2 rushing touchdowns over his career against the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, history is not always a trend, but it's somewhat of something you can keep into realizing, especially since the Eagles, I'm getting thunder over here in New Jersey, since the Eagles' run defense is so strong. So for me, Zeke Elliott, you might not sit him because he is Zeke, but you might want to lower your expectation a lot this week, him having kind of a mediocre week. It might be a really big passing shootout kind of game for the Monday Night Football game. So I know it's upsetting, Jibs. I get it. So who else? What do we have here? Let's see. I bring my spreadsheet back up here. Taysom Williams, Jibs. Are you starting Taysom Williams this week?
Yeah, I'll start him as a flex if I need to.
Solid flex over round. I love it. What about Kareem Hunt? Are you playing Kareem Hunt against the Bears this week?
I would not like to.
No, I'm kind of fading him. I'm fading him too. Would you flex both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams? Not together, obviously, but they play the Jets.
They play who?
The Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considerably, yeah. They definitely get the rushing attempts.
What about Mike Davis? He hasn't really been playing that well. And last week he got the receptions that keep him alive, but he plays the Giants.
I'm down for it as well. He has a role still, so.
Yeah, I think his volume is the only thing that's really keeping him alive in this offense, to be honest. Outside of that, he has not looked very well in this offense. Let's see here. What about Damian Harris versus the Saints this week? Tough front seven there.
I have him. I'm starting him, but it's basically because he's getting 15 rushing attempts a game. I can't find that, and I don't want to really trust a bench wide receiver to depend on that as well. So
right now.
Oh, let me give you this one: Tyler Boyd or Damian Harris, half PPR.
Oof, God, probably Tyler Boyd. Honestly, I don't like it. I feel like Damian Harris is going to have like 15 carries, but like 54 yards, and that's it. While I think maybe Boyd could have 4 for 44, and that's points to 5. It's not great, but it might be more than what Damian Harris is offering you, unfortunately, on the week basis.
Start my sleeper.
Yeah, God. James White or Nyheim Hines?
I like James White more.
Same. I still like James White more. I think the dump off passes from Mac Jones keeps him alive. What about Leonard Fournette? Did you flex Leonard Fournette this week? He seems to be the only guy seeing any work there.
Yeah, I'll flex him. Like, he gets at least 12 rushing. I would say least, but he gets at least 10 rushing attempts, and then he has some game in the passing game. So without Antonio Brown, you could figure he might have a little bit more on his plate.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot there, especially with AB possibly being out. He's seen at least 5 targets a game, and he's the only one getting the red zone work. So, if they can get him down to the 1, they might punch it in with Leonard. He ends up getting a touchdown. Maybe only like 50 total yards, but he gets that touchdown and keeps him really relevant this week. So, not a bad option either. All right, going over to the wide receivers now. Who's your sleeper wide receiver of the week?
I went a little bit bold with the recent news, but I'm going to Quintus Cephas.
All right.
So Tyrell Williams out 3 weeks, at least 3 weeks with a concussion, placed on IR. I figured he could have even more of a bigger role in the offense instead of coming into Monday Night Football and he's not be able to play. But I just like what I'm seeing. Like he has a huge target share on the offense. He gets the third most targets behind T.J. Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift, where that's worth. He has the most. He gets the most targeted wide receiver on that team as well. And Baltimore Ravens haven't been the best defense in the NFL comparatively how we kind of viewed them in the start of the season. Looking at this little sheet over here, like Zay Jones, Brian Edwards, Hunter Renfrow, Brian Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, all scored at least 10 half PPR points over those last 2 weeks. And I think Quinton Cephas could do that, even in a suboptimal Lions team that's going to be chasing points. So that's my guy.
They're definitely going to be chasing points, and the Ravens defense have kind of just been just hit heavily over the last 2 weeks.
And all those names, I'll tell you, are between wide receiver 54 and consensus like 129. No good guys. So like it's just screaming for Cephas. So.
Yeah, it's definitely tough for sure. But I like the pick there. I like Cephas. I love that he's stepping up in his year 2 here. So hopefully that trend continues. For me, I have another. This is a year 3 guy now. It's Darius Slayton versus the Atlanta Falcons this week. You know, we talked about Daniel Jones being a sleeper. Well, if possibly Kenny G doesn't play, and it's possible still, we don't know yet. But if even if he's on the field, I don't think they're going to look his way as often. I think he's going to be more of a decoy. And we saw Darius Slay. I mean, he was so close to having 2 touchdown game. Atlanta gives up like the fifth worst fantasy points to wide receivers. It's like over 30 fantasy points a game. They just haven't been able to stop wide receivers this season here. And I expect them to take a couple deep shots with Darius Darius Slayton, and he could end up being for a really good game. I like him as a flex option this week. I think he could put over 10 fantasy points for you and possibly get you a touchdown this week against a pretty bad Atlanta secondary. So he's my wide receiver sleeper this week. And over to the bust, Jibs. Who you got for a bust?
I'm going Amari Cooper, and I'm just kind of concerned with his little rib injury and whatnot. And, we've seen our Amari Cooper play through stuff like that in the past, and we also seen him kind of get out of games and out. So I will still start him. I'm starting him because obviously he's your wide receiver too, and he puts up good points on a consistent basis. But just be wary, the Eagles give up the fewest amount of points to wide receivers so far this year. I know the secondary isn't like with name brand people, but I believe if Darius Slay could definitely cover Cooper and limit him. I'm bigger on Lamb this week, so I just think Cooper gets shut down, and he's not going to put up as much production as he typically would. So I'm going to go with Cooper as this week's bust.
Yeah, I like that a lot there, especially with his injury banging him up right now. He might not be at 100% for this divisional round game, so I like that a lot. For me, I'm going Terry McLaurin, guys. I hate to say it because I love Scary Terry so much, and I know I have him in leagues, Jibs has him in leagues. And I may not say preferably sit him, but lower your expectation for him this week. There's a good chance he kind of gets lined up against oh my God, who's the cornerback there? Why can't I think of his name? The Bills.
No, Tre'Davious White.
Tre'Davious White. Thank you, Jibs. Tre'Davious White is a lockdown guy. And Terry McLaurin isn't a big guy, so he might have a better advantage because White usually has trouble with bigger guys, but Scary Terry isn't that big. So it could be somewhat of a lockdown situation, but again, he's seeing the heavy target workload, which keeps him confident enough to start him. But you might want to lower your expectation to what we saw last week to more of what we saw in week 1, where he went 4 for 60. And maybe again in PPR leagues, that's good enough for you, but in half-point PPR standard leagues, it may be lower than what you're expecting this week. Again, so far outside of Deontay Johnson, I mean, the Bills have kind of locked down all wide receivers in the Steelers and Dolphins. So it might be a pretty mediocre, if not bad game for a guy like Scary Terry this week. All right, Jib. So we got some, let's talk about some other wide receivers here. Let's see. Rondale Moore. You starting around Rondale Moore this week, the big free agent pickup.
Nope. I said I'll need one more week before I do it.
All right. What about on the other side of the ball? Do you start Lavicia Shenault or DJ Shark?
I have DJ Chark, and I'm sitting him with almost regret. It's just kind of crazy to see him. I think the targets are just going to fluctuate on that team. I think Marvin Jones is pretty much locked and loaded for like at least 6 targets, 4 catches, and a touchdown or something. But out of the group, I don't like them at all.
And again, it's kind of tough to want to even play either one of them just because the target share. Marvin Jones is a lock. Shenault, I'd probably lean Shenault slightly. He is healthy and ready to go. Shark with 4 targets last week kind of scares me. But again, this could be a game where it's like week 1 where they all kind of produce. But again, I'm not 100% confident in them. Let's see. Who else here? Darrell Mooney. Do you like Darrell Mooney this week with Fields?
Yeah, I do.
I like him too. I think he's a good flex option for you. What about Corey Davis? You back on the horse or?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
He gotta perform for me or get a good matchup.
It's definitely tough to want to even play him this week. Do you start Brian Edwards, or Henry Ruggs this week against the Dolphins?
I like Ruggs as a upside flex.
Okay. I'd probably sit both. I still don't trust them enough to even play either one of them. To be honest, I just can't get on. I haven't gotten on board. I want to see them actually produce for multiple weeks before I really say that I'm really happy to put them in my lineups. Let's see here. Who else? Let's do a couple more. Jacoby Myers. Do you play Jacoby Myers or Nelson Aguilar?
It's hard I would play Myers over Aguilar if I just need a floor play, but I just believe Myers is just locked into that short target range that's just only going to accumulate like 50, 60, maybe max yards a game unless the Patriots blow it open. And then Aguilar, you're just touchdown dependent. So I'd rather go with the safer option there.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, honestly. I'd rather prefer Myers over Aguilar. But again, I'm not 100% thrilled to either throw any one of them into my starting lineups because the Saints defense are pretty tough. They're both more like low-end flex options where they might give you a safe floor, but there's no upside for you this week. I don't trust Mac Jones to keep them afloat. So, and let's see, one more. Let's see if we get KJ Osborne. How do you feel about KJ Osborne? Because he's another guy, back-to-back really good weeks and plays a possible shootout situation with Seattle. Do you play him as a flex?
I'm considering it in a 12-team league myself, so he's gotten 17. What? I think he has 12
and 17.
Yeah. So he has a slight role in the offense, and he's playing the snaps. So I think he's a considerable piece, especially without the tight end being like effective in that offense. And you never know. Dalvin Cook's a little banged up, so they could even pass more to stay in the game. So I think he's a decent play, good DFS play, if he hasn't people caught on.
I like that a lot there for sure. What about, do you start him over like the Steelers guys outside of Deontay Johnson, like Claypool and Schuster?
Let me give you my scenario. I don't think so. No.
Okay. I would consider starting him if Deontay Johnson plays. If no Deontay Johnson, then I wouldn't consider starting him over the Steelers guys. I'd consider him over like Tyler Boyd, maybe the Jags wide receivers, not Marvin Jones, the Patriots wide receivers. Let's see, Christian Kirk. I'd start him over him.
Odell Beckham.
Guys. I'd start him over Odell Beckham this week. I don't trust Odell Beckham on his first game back. So, he's still a game time decision, it says. I just got to report it's still game time, and then he might be limited. So keep that in mind.
So, yeah, my options this week is Odell Beckham, Quintus Cephas. Oh, no. He's on waivers, sorry. DJ Chark and KJ Osborne.
So Cephas, Chark, and Osborne.
Beckham, Chark, and Osborne. Sorry.
Chark and Osborne. I'd probably start Osborne, to be honest.
That's why he's in my flex.
Yeah, I love it. I love that scenario for sure. Love that. All right. Let's see here. Let's hunt over to our tight ends time, guys. And Jibs, who's your tight end sleeper this week?
And I'm just all in on the Giants this week, and this is a guy who's pretty much either been on an IR spot or on waivers. But Evan Ingram, I know if he's playing this week, so it's all contingent on that, I guess. If he doesn't play, I'll take the L. So you got me saying that. But Atlanta gives up the second most tight end points this year, and they have allowed a touchdown in the last 2 games, and they allowed 3 so far this year. So I think there's a good chance for him to get slightly utilized in the offense. Like, none of the tight ends accumulated more than 50 yards receiving, but it's a good chance he goes for 40 yards and a touchdown, just given the opportunity, and maybe a short thing in the red zone. So that's my guy, Evan Ingram.
And if Evan Ingram doesn't play, Kyle Rudolph is definitely a deep league option they could consider as well. I like that.
Getting some passes late last week.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So for my sleeper tight end guys, I went with Gerald Everett once again. The Minnesota Vikings just allowed Max Williams from the Cardinals to, put over 80 yards last week. It's pretty bad. And like I said, we talked about this game being a possible shootout. Everett might be able to be used in this offense and kind of do something. I know he didn't really see the stick last week because it was Freddie Swain, but that could flip-flop and it could be more of a tight end focus week for a guy like Everett. And he's definitely not flex, but he has sleeper status to his name this week as if you're looking for a guy that you may not like your starting lineup, or if you're going to the streaming option, he's a guy that you could possibly go after. And Jibs, your tight end bust.
I forgot who this guy's playing, so now I'm going to sound like a dummy. But it's Logan Thomas. You know who the football team's playing this week?
They're playing Buffalo Bills.
They're playing, the Buffalo Bills. That's who I need to talk about. So the Buffalo Bills, they're pretty stingy against opposing tight ends. And I'm just not liking Taylor Heineke's utilization of Logan Thomas in the offense. I know he made a lot of errant throws that could be corrected, but the Bills is pretty stout. I'm just not expecting him to go for 50 yards. Like, if he needs to get that touchdown, that's basically going to save you this week. He needs a touchdown to pan it in. So they only allowed 6 points to tight ends so far this year. So boom, I don't think it's going to happen for Logan Thomas this year.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope it does, but yeah, he hasn't come off to the greatest start to start the season. But it is what it is. Hopefully that they can kind of pick things up there in Washington. For me, guys, my bust is Jonnu Smith. And Jonnu Smith, he's gotten 5 targets in back-to-back games, which is great to see. But he's done very little with these targets. They're not a big pass-happy team right now. They're not really getting the ball downfield. Mac Jones is averaging 6.6 yards per attempt. He's really not airing the ball downfield. And Jonnu Smith, he's still spending time with Hunter Henry. Everyone is healthy right now on that team. Unless something happens, I don't really see Jonnu really taking that next step. Especially in this week here, the Saints have allowed basically nothing to tight ends this season so far. And again, they're a stout defense still. So I expect this to be very low scoring, and I don't think Jonnu Smith actually sees the end zone this week. So for me, Jonnu Smith is my tight end bust. Let's see here. Let's see if we get any tight ends to talk about real quick before we sign off for the night. You start Mike Gesicki this week?
No.
No, me neither. No, I'm not feeling it. Cole Kmet?
I would.
I consider it, but again, I wasn't happy with the 1 target game last week. Let's see here. Do you start one of the Dallas tight ends? I'd probably say no. No. What about Tyler Conklin on the other side of the ball, that Minnesota game?
I like him as a streamer, but he's just in that consideration.
He's that 4th option, honestly. But yeah. It's not looking great.
And our bust for these guys.
Yep. Not the best week, unfortunately, for tight ends, but it is what it is, guys. So that's going to end our show today, guys. That's our start and sit episode of this week here. We kept it short and simple for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the more shorter version of this. We wanted to really just talk about as many players as we can, but give you guys in a short amount of time. So, you're not sitting there for a whole hour listening to things. You're getting good 30 minutes from us, 35 minutes from us this week, and can hopefully help you get your start and sits in. As always, please feel free to check out our website at www.thefantasycoaches.com. We have all of our articles up there. Our rankings for week 3 are up there. Check them out. We're updating them as we go. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do that at Coaches Fantasy. If you want to follow me or Jibs on Twitter, you can do that at Coach Stephen P.
Hot take Concho.
Hot take Concho. So again, guys, just so you know, I do have a bunch of things going up on my Twitter page right now for starts and sits for every single game and every single team. So go check that out there, and happy to help you guys out as much as we can for week 3. Until next time, guys, have a good one.